My name is Mitty Houston, and I was 28 years old when I finally accepted the truth I'd been dodging my entire life. In my family, I was never meant to be celebrated. I was meant to be useful. Not loved loudly, not protected, just dependable. Growing up, I learned early that our household ran on a very specific system. My younger brother Logan was the sun. Everything orbited around him. His moods, his dreams, his mistakes. And I was the gravity, quietly holding everything together so he could shine without consequence. Logan is 2 years younger than me. Not 5, not 10, just 2. But somehow those 2 years translated into a permanent excuse. When something broke, I should have known better. When he messed up, he was still young. When I pushed back, I was too sensitive. When he needed help, it was an emergency. By the time I was 13, I was the built-in babysitter. By 16, the backup driver. By 18, the emotional shock absorber between my parents and their golden child. I wasn't raised, I was recruited. When college came up, my parents sat me down like they were delivering bad news from a boardroom. The budget talk. The one where fairness goes to die. They told me they could help me with tuition or help me with my wedding someday. Not both. I remember sitting there, nodding, pretending that was a normal choice to make your daughter face at 18. I chose school, took out loans, worked part-time, lived off instant noodles and cheap coffee. I didn't complain. I told myself it would pay off. When Logan turned 18, no one asked him to choose. His tuition was paid in full. His dorm was upgraded. When he graduated, my parents surprised him with a newer car because he needed something reliable for job hunting. He wasn't job hunting. He was swiping through dating apps and sleeping through interviews. Funny how money was always tight. Until it wasn't. I didn't say anything back then. I kept telling myself life wasn't a competition, that if I stayed responsible, things would balance out eventually. They didn't. I met Ethan 6 years ago. He's steady in a way my family never was. Observant. The kind of man who notices what people don't say. When he met my parents, he was polite, respectful. But later, when we were alone, he said something that stuck. It feels like you disappear when they talk about your brother. I brushed it off. I wasn't ready to hear it yet. When we got engaged, I didn't expect my parents to help. That would have required them to see me as something other than Logan's emergency contact. Still, I hoped, quietly, that maybe this time would be different. Their reaction wasn't cruel. It was worse. "Oh," my mom said, "already?" Then, without missing a beat, she asked, "So, when do you think Logan will settle down?" I stood there holding my engagement ring, realizing I'd just handed them a milestone they barely glanced at. Ethan saw it too. Later, he told me it felt like we were background characters in my own family's story. I didn't argue. We decided to fund the wedding ourselves. No drama, no expectations. I'd been saving since my first real job. 5 years of skipped vacations, packed lunches, saying no when others said yes. By the time we started planning, I had $15,000 set aside. It wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. We wanted something simple, a small beach ceremony, ocean air, good food, good music, a moment of peace before diving into adult life for real. Deposits were coming up, invitations were nearly ready. For once, everything felt aligned. I should have known better. In my family, if Logan didn't get something first, I wasn't allowed to have it at all. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was my mom. She sighed before she spoke, long and dramatic, like she was auditioning for a role she'd practiced. "Your dad isn't doing well." My stomach dropped. My dad's had diabetes for years, managed but not perfect. I asked what happened. She talked about dizziness, weakness, doctors recommending a new medication. Then came the pause, the kind designed to make you offer before they ask. "It's not covered by insurance," she said. "It has to be imported. We really need your help." I didn't even hesitate. I didn't ask questions. I didn't think about deposits or contracts or the wedding we'd been planning for years. When someone says your father might be dying, logic shuts off. How much? I asked. She hesitated, like she didn't want to say it. $15,000, the exact amount I had saved. Every dollar, every sacrifice. I should have been suspicious. But who lies about something like that? I transferred the money the next morning. No drama, no conditions. Just a text saying it was done. A few days later, I drove over to check on my dad. I expected hospital equipment, fatigue, something. He was on the couch watching football, eating a giant sandwich, arguing with the TV. "Oh, the meds are working fast," my mom said cheerfully. I asked for paperwork, discharge notes, prescriptions, anything. She got defensive instantly. "You don't believe us?" she snapped. Wow. She said everything was digital, that the hospital portal was down, that she'd show me later. Later never came. And that was when something inside me shifted. I tried to let it go at first. I really did. I told myself I was being paranoid, that stress makes people suspicious, that my parents had never been great communicators, but they wouldn't fake something like a medical emergency. That was crossing a line normal people didn't cross. Still, the feeling wouldn't leave. Weeks passed, and nothing about my dad's life changed. He didn't lose weight, didn't slow down, didn't miss his favorite shows or his morning routine. No new doctor's visits, no pharmacy runs, no quiet panic that usually follows real health scares. And my mom, she was oddly upbeat. If you just drained your daughter's savings for life-saving medication, wouldn't you be stressed, tired, snappy? Instead, she was humming while cooking, chatting about neighborhood gossip, acting lighter than she'd been in months. What really bothered me was Logan. He hadn't come by once. If I'd gotten a call saying my dad might be dying, I would have dropped everything. Logan didn't even text. When I asked my mom about it, she waved it off. "We didn't want to worry him," she said. "He's so young. He just started a new job. He doesn't need this kind of stress." I remember thinking, but I do? That night, I texted him. No response. 3 days later, he replied with a photo. A mountain resort, snow-capped peaks, a fireplace, wine glasses in the foreground. "Sorry, sis, been off the grid, honeymoon stuff." Honeymoon? My hands went cold. Logan had mentioned delaying the honeymoon until next year. Money reasons, work reasons. That's what everyone had said. I called him. He answered on the second ring, laughing, like nothing in the world was wrong. "Oh yeah, plans changed," he said casually. "Mom and Dad wanted to surprise us. Fully funded trip. Europe, Paris, Venice, Barcelona. We're going all out." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I asked one question, carefully. "How much do you think the whole trip costs?" He laughed again. "At least 15, maybe 20 grand. We're not paying for anything. Even the shopping budget's from them. Wild, right?" I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there staring at the wall, replaying every conversation from the past month, every dramatic sigh, every vague excuse, every missing document. There was no emergency. There was no medication. There was just my wedding fund, converted into luxury hotels, first-class flights, and gondola selfies. Something broke in me. Not loudly, not all at once. It was quiet, like a switch flipping. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call Ethan right away. I drove straight to my parents' house. They were in the kitchen when I walked in. My mom chopping vegetables, humming. My dad scrolling on his tablet, glasses perched on his nose. The picture of health. I dropped. "So," I said calmly, "Logan's honeymoon, Europe. Sounds nice." My mom froze. My dad slowly lowered the tablet. "Oh, told me everything," I replied. "Luxury hotels, shopping sprees, fully funded. About $15,000. I used air quotes when I said it. Funny coincidence, right? That's the exact amount you borrowed for Dad's emergency treatment. My mom's face hardened instantly. "You think we lied to you?" she said, offended. "How could you even think that about your own parents?" "I don't think it," I said. "I know it." That's when the truth finally came out, not as an apology, but as a justification. "We didn't have a choice," she snapped. "You wouldn't have given us the money if we told you the truth." "Exactly," I said. "That's why it's called lying." She launched into her favorite defense: Logan's struggles, his stress, his job, how low he'd been feeling, how much he needed that honeymoon. "You don't get to buy someone's happiness using someone else's life," I said quietly. My dad finally spoke. "You've got a good job," he said. "You're young. You'll recover. It's just money." That was the moment I realized they truly didn't see me as a person, just a resource. I told them they had two options: pay me back before the wedding or don't come. My mom gasped like I'd slapped her. "You'd keep us from your wedding?" "If you weren't my parents," I said, "would you expect an invitation after this?" They didn't answer. They said they couldn't repay it all at once, that they'd need time, installments. "I don't want payments," I said. "I want my wedding fund." I walked out without slamming the door. When I got home, Ethan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once. "Okay," he said, "we pivot." That night, we canceled the beach venue, lost the deposit, didn't care. We booked his aunt's farmhouse instead. Quiet, private, safe. No announcements, no social media, no one from my side. It wasn't the wedding I planned, but for the first time, it was a wedding they couldn't steal. The week after I walked out of my parents' house felt unreal, like I'd stepped out of a noisy room and into silence so deep it rang in my ears. They didn't call at first. That should have told me everything. Instead of panic or apology, there was distance, like they were waiting for me to cool off and come crawling back, embarrassed for having overreacted. That had always been the pattern. I'd get upset, they'd wait, I'd fold. This time I didn't. Ethan and I moved fast, faster than I ever had in my life. We called his aunt that same night. She didn't ask a dozen questions or try to mediate. She just said, "You can use the farmhouse, tell me the date." We kept it small, intimate, no spectacle, no chance for interference. The people we invited were the ones who'd never asked me for money, never guilted me, never treated my milestones like background noise. I didn't tell my parents the new date. I didn't tell Logan anything at all. A few days later, my mom finally called. She cried. Not the quiet, reflective kind of crying. The loud, performative kind, meant to shift blame without admitting fault. "You're tearing this family apart," she sobbed, "over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I said calmly. "You told me my father was sick, so I'd give you my wedding fund." There it was, out in the open. I told her they were no longer invited to the wedding, that until the full amount was returned, there would be no discussion. My dad took the phone next. "This isn't worth ruining the relationship over," he said, like he was negotiating a cable bill. "It was ruined when you lied," I said. "I'm just done pretending it wasn't." The wedding happened quietly, no drama, no speeches about family unity, no whispered warnings about what not to say around my mother. Just sunlight, laughter, and people who actually wanted to be there. I didn't check my phone until the next morning. That was a mistake. 5 missed calls from my mom, 2 voicemails, a long Facebook message that managed to accuse me of betrayal without once mentioning the money. My dad sent 1 text, "Very disappointed in you." That one made me laugh. Then Logan texted, "Kind of messed up you didn't tell us." I replied with 1 sentence, "Wire me back the $15,000 and we're even." He never responded. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty. I sent my parents a formal email. No insults, no emotion, just facts. I gave them 30 days to return the money before I pursued legal action. They ignored it. So I followed through. Once I sent that email, something strange happened. I felt calm. Not angry, not vindicated, just finished. I gave them 30 days. They didn't respond. No counteroffer, no apology, no attempt to negotiate. Just silence. Like if they ignored the problem long enough, I'd go back to being the quiet daughter who fixed things for them. Instead, I filed the paperwork. Small claims court. Exact amount, $15,000, plus filing fees. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I attached the bank transfer, my mother's text using the words medical emergency. screenshots of Logan's honeymoon posts with date stamps, and a neat little timeline showing how everything overlapped perfectly. While the case moved forward, I stopped protecting their image. Not loudly, not vindictively, just honestly. When a cousin congratulated me on the wedding, I replied, "Thanks, wish my parents could have been there, but they chose to fund a European honeymoon instead." That was all it took. My aunt called the next day, furious. Turns out my parents had borrowed money from her the year before for car repairs. Another lie, another dot connecting. Then my grandmother called, my dad's mother. Sharp, no nonsense, allergic to excuses. I told her the short version. She told me she'd been sending my parents money monthly because she thought they were struggling. She cut them off that same day, took them out of her will. Then she called every sibling she had and told them exactly why. I didn't ask her to do that. I didn't have to. Meanwhile, Logan's life started cracking. HR at his job had questions. Apparently, they didn't love that he'd taken emergency family leave while posting gondola selfies in Venice. He lost a major client, got put on probation, then taken off commission. He texted once. "Can we talk?" I replied, "You coasted. They lied. I paid. We're not the same." Court day came quietly. No drama, no speeches, just facts. The judge ruled in my favor in under 15 minutes. Full repayment plus fees, 60 days or garnishment. Outside the courthouse, my mom grabbed my arm. "We're family," she said desperately. I looked at her and said the one thing I'd never let myself say before. "You lied to me. You stole from me. You're not family. You're a liability." Then I walked away. 2 weeks later, a certified check arrived. No note, no apology, just the money. Even at the end, they couldn't acknowledge what they'd done without turning it into a transaction. I didn't respond. I didn't block them either. I just disappeared. No updates, no holidays, no photos. I became a ghost, the kind that haunts by absence. Logan lost his job a month later. Company restructuring, they said. Funny how accountability always finds a way in eventually. My parents sold their car, then their timeshare. Tried for a personal loan and got denied. Turns out golden child strategies collapse when the backup plan grows a spine. Ethan and I used the court money for our honeymoon. Not Europe. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one knew our names or expected anything from us. One night, watching the sunset, he asked me if I regretted cutting them off. I didn't hesitate. No, because it was never really about the money. It was about respect, about finally believing that being treated like an afterthought wasn't normal and didn't have to be tolerated. I didn't get the wedding I planned. I got something better. Peace.